When old trains are retired, they're normally stored, scrapped, preserved, or banished to Romania for a second life. The 60-year-old Dutch MAT 64 withdrawn in 2016, however, has made an unexpected yet welcome return to passenger service almost 10 years later. We'll be looking at this iconic Dutch train, what it's like to ride, and why it was brought back into service as we travel from Amersfoort to Barneveld, Zuid. Now join me as the journey continues. We start this journey at Amersfoort Centraal on a beautiful early July morning, which, as the name suggests, is the main station serving the city of Amersfoort in the Netherlands Utrecht province. The station has been on this site since 1901, though it didn't actually have the Centraal part of the name added until 2019. Quite a few of the station's amenities can be found just before the barriers, including ticket machines and offices, as well as an Albert Heijn supermarket. Is any Dutch station complete without one? One thing you'll notice when approaching the barriers is that there are two different colours. The first three to the left are coloured purple, whilst the remaining four are yellow, which I'll come back to later, as this doesn't really matter for me at the moment given I'm using my Interrail pass. Despite the station dating back to 1901, the railways have been an integral part of Amersfoort since 1863, being an important railway junction in the Netherlands. This is evidenced by the murals and engravings you can see here from the 150th anniversary celebrations in 2013. It's also in Amersfoort where you can travel on the oldest train on the Dutch railway network, which is what we should be doing this morning. Not only can you catch the country's oldest trains here, but also its newest. Seen here is the brand new ICNG and an SNG trio working a slower Sprinter stopping service. These are both operated by the Dutch state railway operator NS, but the train we'll be taking today is operated by Keolis. They have run services on the Valleilijn between Amersfoort, Barneveld and Wageningen since 2023, with these services also transitioning to the Reis brand under Keolis. Both NS and Keolis therefore have separate ticket barriers and tap-in stands for OV chip card holders. The yellow one on the left is for NS trains, whilst the purple one on the right will be for the Valleilijn trains run by Keolis. Keolis' current fleet consists of 2 Stadler Flirts and 5 Protos trains, the latter of which will be featured in a future video as they're quite unique. That being said, the train running the 0755 to Barneveld Zuid this morning, which we'll be catching, is even more unique. Or so I thought. A Protos ended up substituting for the train we were supposed to catch this morning for unknown reasons, so I had to abandon my attempt, at least this time.
Several months later.
Fast forward 2 months later, and I made a return to the Netherlands to ride the Valleilijn again, this time spending the night in Utrecht where I only needed to ride an intercity train for 10 minutes to make it back to Amersfoort. Even this early in the morning, there's plenty of activity here. Whilst I did manage to see the now extinct Berlin IC service and the iconic Kooploper, the only thing on my mind was whether the train I was after was running this morning. And it was. This is the MAT 64, part of a series of 4-car Plan T or 2-car Plan V, 140 km/h capable electric multiple units built by Werkspoor, Talbot and Duvag between 1961 and 1976, the entire fleet being withdrawn by the end of 2016 in favour of newer models such as the SLT. One was preserved by the Dutch National Railway Museum in Utrecht upon retirement, and several of these trains can even be seen in the yard just outside of the station. This particular unit, number 904, was part of the last of the Plan V series built by Talbot and entered service with NS in 1973, primarily on Sprinter services. After being withdrawn, the unit entered preservation, working various rail tours and charter services around the Netherlands under the eventual ownership of the 2454 group. Rolling stock shortages with Keolis, however, resulted in the former striking a deal with the latter, and the train set was leased by Keolis for a period of 2 years, for use on 2 weekday morning rush hour services to and from Barneveld Zuid from the 6th of May 2025. I decided to skip the first service of the day as it was fairly busy and still quite dark, so I patiently waited for the MAT 64 to return to Amersfoort for its second and last service of the day on the Valleilijn. The MAT 64 is also named Apercup or Monkey Head. No prizes for guessing why this is. You may also recognise the design of the front from station signage across the Netherlands, as seen here at Schiphol Airport. 904 was also vinyled into the standard livery used by Keolis' existing fleet, which suits it quite well I think. What are your thoughts? Given the age of this train, you of course won't find level boarding, with several stairs present to board. What you will find, however, is a small open area towards the rear cab. Dutch passenger trains previously carried mail until 1979, and this was the dedicated mailroom on the MAT 64, which of course has now fallen into disuse. We, however, need to head towards the front of the train to reach first class. Part of it is the typical 2x1 bay seating, but what we're after is the compartment seating at the front. 2 compartments are present which can hold 6 passengers each, but it's fairly quiet this morning, so we have this all to ourselves. We have a fairly simple route today, making one intermediate stop at Hoverlaken before reaching the Valleilijn to call at Barneveld Noord, Barneveld Centrum, and finally Barneveld Zuid. Our journey this morning will take 19 minutes to cover a distance of 21 kilometers or 13 miles. We depart Amersfoort Centraal on time at 07:55 as we start our short but sweet ride on this Dutch railway icon. After leaving Amersfoort, we join the Mainline towards Zwolle and Deventer, and so far there's not much difference to a normal train ride in the Netherlands in 2026. However, that changed once I found out that the windows can be opened wide enough on the MAT 64 for my camera to fit outside and get some great shots en route to Barneveld. Just as well the weather's decent enough for it. Now we're on the move, this is a perfect chance to have a look inside the compartment, and given this is an old train, the seats are very well padded and comfortable as to be expected. Just a shame I'm only sitting in it for 20 minutes. All seats in the compartments have foldable armrests, and there's even a mirror on top of the middle seat in the row in front. I'll come back to the QR code in the reflection later. The compartment also has a small table between rows, which underneath contains a small personal bin, which already looks pretty full. As the compartments contain bay seating, legroom will be rather limited with other passengers opposite you, but this isn't much of an issue for us this morning, as you can see. One thing I failed to mention earlier was that the compartments are marked as silent zones so as not to disturb any passengers working, or making a video for YouTube in my case. There's also a helpline number on the windows to contact the Keolis team or local authorities if there are any emergency situations. Also next to the windows are the coat hooks, and just underneath the ceiling are luggage racks for storing large items such as suitcases. Okay, so don't really expect much from a train that's over 50 years old, but it's still pretty great, and for such a short journey twice a day, the lack of power sockets and other amenities shouldn't be too much of an issue. Despite their age, I'd say the ride quality of the Plan V isn't actually too bad. Certainly better than certain modern trains in the 21st century. We're now reaching the top line speed of 130 km per hour, and given how straight and flat most railway lines in the Netherlands are, that makes the open windows all the more fun. I know I've briefly touched upon the reason 904's returned to service with Keolis almost 10 years after retirement, but why is it only 904 that's come back? Surely Keolis would have sufficient units to meet demand with such a modern fleet? Well, the answer to that can be found in our compartment. Keolis' existing fleet of Flirts and Protos are undergoing an extensive relivery and refurbishment program between 2025 and 2027, and given how small their fleet is with a total of 7 units, even having 1 unit out of long-term service means that the rush hour service requirements can't be met. Therefore, to cover the peak time service requirements, Keolis approached the 2454 group to lease 904 for the 2-year period, and it will return to them once the refurbishment program of all 7 units is completed in 2027. Provided all goes to plan, of course, no pun intended. Now let's have a quick walkthrough of the rest of the train. Second class is laid out again in a bay seating layout with 2x2 bench seating, and it's actually pretty comfy. Probably a bit difficult to sit in legroom wise though with someone opposite you, but otherwise perfectly fine, and again better than the newer sprinters out on the Dutch railway network nowadays. Another thing I appreciated about the interior was the numerous murals found throughout both carriages. I'm not really sure what these are for or what their meaning is, if any, but if anyone knows, please feel free to let me know in the comments. Despite the lack of accessibility on these trains, the section here is used as a wheelchair space as well as storage for bikes, and there's even a working toilet. This being a standard one, of course. Initial looks may fool you as to how big it is, but it's pretty spacious and impeccably clean, which is expected given its restriction to 2 peak weekday return services. We're now diverging from the main line and onto the Valleilijn, which is marked by our stop at Barneveld Noord. Most of the line from here is single tracked, and despite the footbridge to the station crossing over the main line, there's only one platform. The footbridge providing a link to the nearby park and ride facility, Transferrium Barneveld Noord, off the A1 motorway. The Valleilijn used to provide links between Nijkerk and Ede-Wageningen from 1902 until 1937 when the link was demolished. The line nowadays runs from Barneveld Noord to Ede-Wageningen over a 17km distance and 20 minutes of travel time. The Valleilijn is also nicknamed the Kippenlijn or Chicken Line, as a reference to the many chicken farms located in the valley it runs through. And believe me, with the smell outside as we get closer to Barneveld Zuid, it's pretty obvious this is the case. Barneveld Centrum is our final calling point before Barneveld Zuid and the end of our brief trip today. It's also here where the line briefly returns to double track operation, not only for chicken line trains, but also for freight traffic from the nearby cattle feed factory. Overall, I had a fun morning on a train I never really expected to ride in 2025. Accessibility issues aside, it's great to see a Dutch railway icon that's been retired for almost 10 years return to regular passenger service, and if you can, definitely give this interesting piece of history a go before it's withdrawn again in 2027. Definitely worth the early wake-up call. I was using my first class Interrail pass for this trip, and reservations on trains domestically in the Netherlands aren't subject to compulsory reservation, so I just hopped on board and took a free seat in the compartment. Prices from Amersfoort to Barneveld Zuid cost €6.02 in second class and €10.05 in first class at the full rates, which, whilst expensive for a 20-minute ride, are both still significantly cheaper than a charter train or rail tour with these. We're now approaching Barneveld Zuid, where we arrive bang on time at 14 minutes past 8. Now you've heard from me, I want to hear from you. What did you think of the Keolis MAT 64? Are you excited for its return, and have you had a chance to give it a go either before or after retirement? Let me know in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like and share it if you did to aid the channel's growth, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more content such as this weekly. As the MAT 64 returns to Amersfoort, I'm continuing my journey to Ede-Wageningen on a Protos before I return later. Thanks so much for coming with me on this trip, and I look forward to bringing you with me on my next one.